Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It's your main math man, Mr. Shen, coming to you live from Summit Academy. In this video, we are working on a little bit of a review here. So still in the first half of Unit 3, and we're talking about being able to find solutions to systems of equations, not only graphically but also algebraically. So what you can do is if you pull up the Decimus activity in the Unit 3 folder, and it's labeled Lesson 1 through 4 reviews solutions check. We're going to talk about what we're doing. So in this check, I'm going to answer all questions, and we'll do this together. So it says find the solution. So it says find a solution to the following problem. Make sure you identify any invalid solutions. And so using that poster on the side there, again, I'm talking about being able to set them equal to each other. So I have something like this. I have square root of x plus 4 equals x minus 2. And what I need to do is I need to be able to get rid of some of these terms. So let's subtract 4 from both sides. So I say minus 4 to both sides. And I'm going to have, I have square root of x equals x minus 6. And then I can square both sides because I need to get rid of this square root. So I square both sides by raising it to the exponent of 2. And so now I'm going to say I have x equals x squared minus 12x plus 36. So again, if you need to do that on the side, please do. But all I did was I raised this set of parentheses to exponent 2. So it's almost like I'm doing, if you needed to, you can draw a little box in there for yourself. I'm saying I have kind of split like this. So I have, let's say we have x minus 6 and x minus 6. So what I'm doing is I have, this is x squared, this is negative 6x, this is negative 6x, and this one is going to be positive 36. So notice I have these 4 terms. Again, add those 2 like terms together. So negative 6 plus negative 6 is going to be negative 12x. So that's how I get it. Go from the set of parentheses to this quadratic. Last step is set it equal to 0 because I need to get it by itself. I need to find what those x-intercepts are. So I subtract x from both sides. So I have 0 equals x squared minus 13x plus 36. And so now I need to come up with that intercept form because I have it in standard form right now. And so what I can do is either graph it out or be able to use your products and sums. So what I mean by that is I have 2 sets of parentheses that are going to be set equal to 0. I know I have x minus something times x minus something because my product is positive 36 and my sum is negative 13. So that tells me that both of them are going to be negative because same sign multiplied together is going to be positive. I can say 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 36 that add together to give me 13 are going to be 4 and 9. So I can say on the side here, I can say x equals positive 4 and positive 9. But what I have to do is we talked about those extraneous solutions, meaning those solutions that do not work out. So what now I have to do is I have to sub them back into our original equation. So I'm going to say I'm going to break this apart. I'm going to say let x equal 4, and I'm going to say let x equal 9. I plug them back into my original equation here at the top. So I'm going to say, I can draw the arrow on the side here if you want, but I do it 2 separate times. So what I'm doing is let's do x equals 4 first. So I'm going to say I have square root of 4 plus 4 equals, or I'm saying is that equal to 4 minus 2. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm rewriting this first equation right here. I'm rewriting it. Instead of x, I now have a 4. So let's simplify. So that's going to be 2 plus 4. 2 plus 4, is that equal to 4 minus 2, which is 2? And we're going to say, does 6 equal 2? We're going to say, no, it certainly does not. And so we know this one is wrong. So we're going to say, no, not a solution. And so we can cross out and say, hey, that positive 4 is not a solution. However, let's check our other side. Let's say when we let x equal 9, make sure it's equals 9. we sub that back into our original equation and see what we get. So I'm going to say I have square root of 9 plus 4 equals, or is that equal to 9 minus 2? So let's simplify. We'll say square root of 9 is 3 plus 4. Is that equal to 9 minus 2, which is 7? And we're going to say yes, 7 equals 7. So we can put a green check on that one. So we're going to say check, and we're going to say yes, it does work out. And so we're going to circle our answer as just 9. So you have to be careful and you have to make sure that you're doing this correctly, because you should get one answer that is no and one answer that is yes. And so what we can do on the side here, let's type this in. We're going to say using our inverse operations, we got 2 solutions where one is correct and the other is incorrect. And when I say incorrect, I'm talking about it's extraneous, meaning it's an extra answer that does not work out when we check it out. And so we're going to say, in here we say x equals, what was that, positive 9. Sorry, positive 9. Make sure you hit submit. The answer should look something like this. So now on that next slide, we can graph it out. And so what we do is we graph out our solutions to find what we have. So I'm going to type in my first equation. And again, to get my first equation, again, all I have to do is type in my left side of this line. This is going to be my first equation, and then I'm going to type in my second line as my right side of my equation. So it should look something like this. I'm going to say y equals, hit the little keypad button, this pops up. I'm going to say square root x, make sure it's separate, so you have to move that cursor to the right side, and then I say it was plus 4. So that's my first graph, is going to be like this. Again, you can move this around for yourself, that way you can see it. Then my second line is going to be y equals, and then what did it say? I had x minus 2. So I said y equals x minus 2. So notice how it gives you 2 different lines. Again, that solution point is where they cross. And then so we're going to say, hey, it's going to be at the point 9, 7. So I'm going to say, all right, type that in, 9, 7, in parentheses, graphs the point, but we need to label it and say that's our solution point, because we're talking about where the 2 lines intersect, cross, meet, or touch. Again, notice too how that x value we found is going to be also the x value in our solution point. So make sure you're just saying that, hey, our solution point is 9, 7, where the x value is 9. Similar idea for the next part. We're going to say for this one, however, it's a little bit easier because when we go to find our solutions, all we have to do is set it equal to 0. So we're going to say set equal to 0. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're looking for those graphs, or we're looking for those x-intercepts. So we say 0 equals, and then we say x squared minus 4x minus 12. Again, these are going to be these are still called our x-intercepts. Okay, so separate it out. I need 2 numbers in these sets of parentheses. I know that one is going to be positive and one's going to be negative, because if I look at my product is negative 12, which tells me that they have different signs, and then it tells me I have negative 4 as my sum. So I can say, okay, well, I have 2 times 6 is going to be negative 12, and then I have 2 minus 6 is negative 4. So that works out, so I'm going to say x equals negative 2 and positive 6. Again, I could plug those in, but for right now, again, I can also just graph it out, which is on that actual slide. So I can say set equal to 0 and solve for x, because that's all we're trying to do when we find those x-intercepts. And we're going to say this works out because when we plug it in, when we actually plug it in, it will look something like this. So I could say, let's plug it in, let's say let x equal -2, let x equal +6. And so we're going to say, plug it into our original equation. So we have, is this equal to 0? So we're saying, we have -2 squared minus 4 times -2 minus 12. So this is going to be 0 equals, this is going to be 4 plus 8 minus 12. And we can say that 12 minus 12 is actually 0. Since 0 equals 0, this one's a yes. Make sure that's an equal sign in between these two. And the same idea on the right side, we're going to say 0 equals, let's say, 6 squared in parentheses minus 4 times 6 minus 12. So this is going to be equal to, let's say this is 36 minus 24 minus 12. I'm going to say this is 12 minus 12, which again is correct. So again, for some of these, you're going to have 2 answers. For some of these, you're going to only have 1 answer. So we have to just be careful on these two. So we're going to say, hey, this is and does work out. So we're going to say x equals, what do we say, -2. You say and +6. Again, make sure you're hitting your answer, that red button, so that way it submits it and saves your work. Again, make sure you see your name at the top left, so that way you're signed in. All right, moving on, let's graph them out. So we said y equals, we had x squared minus 4x minus 12. Look at our 2 x-intercepts. Again, those are our 2 solutions. So let's say we have -2, 0, and we have a comma in between it, and we have 6, 0. We can label those as our solution points or our x-intercepts. Just gonna make sure you're graphing them out and labeling it. All right, moving on to the next part. Now we have some rational functions. And so let's say something like this. We have 1 over x plus 3 over x equals x minus 3. Make sure to graph those out. Again, I can add these two together since they have the same denominator. And so this is going to be 4 over x equals x minus 3. Multiply both sides because I'm trying to get x on one side. So I have to multiply both sides by x. Then I say this is going to be 4 equals x squared minus 3x. Get this side equal to 0, so that way I can get it in that intercept form. So I'm going to say 0 equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. Get your 2 sets of parentheses. Again, I know that I have a positive number and a negative number since our product is negative. So 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 4, whose sum is -3. I'm going to say 1 and 4. So that just means x equals -1 and +4. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to graph it out on my next slide here. So I'm going to say use inverse operations to get x by itself. Mainly, always graph out the system. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Make sure you type in -1 and +4 as your answers, I should say, since it's going to be 2 different points. And so we check using the graph. Again, I'm going to type out my left side of my equation exactly as it looks, and then I'll type in my right side as a separate line. So I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say y equals 1 over x plus 3 over x. So we have this funky looking equation, but that's okay, or this funky looking graph. But then we say y equals, and then what's our other line? X minus 3. So I say x minus 3. So notice how I have these 2 points here. Again, I have 2 points where they intersect. So I'm going to say I can click on those points to be able to see where they're at. So I have -1, -4, and I have 4, 1. So let's graph those out. So I have -1, -4, and I have 4, 1. Label those as solution points, because we're saying it's where those two lines are equal or where our two equations are equal. Again, make sure you're saying I had my left side of my equation and I had my right side of my equation. And then for the last one, be able to graph this out. So I'm going to say something like this. I have, let's just say for this one, graph out system. So let's find out where they're equal and we'll fill it in. So I'm going to say on my last slide, I have y equals x squared, and what was the other part? -3. Okay, there's my first graph, and then I say y equals x plus 3. Let me change this so that way it's a different color, a little bit easier to see. And if I look, notice how it's kind of like hitting at two different points. And so I can say, hey, here are my two solution points. So I'm going to say -2, 1. And then I have, what is that, 3, 6, I think? Yeah. So I'm going to say label that as our solution points. So make sure that you can, you could have 1 point, you could have 2 points, you could have 0 points, you could have infinitely many points, but you have to make sure that you're seeing how many times do those hit. So I'm saying where the red line and the blue line intersect, touch, meet, cross, whatever you want to say, are where the equations are equal. So we're going to say at the point we had x equals what? So make sure that you're careful on what you choose, because I need to say, hey, I have my x values from these 2 points are going to be -2 and +3. So I'm going to say x equals -2 and +3. So make sure that you see how these are set up. Again, be able to ask questions as they come up. Again, get comfortable using that Desmos graph for yourself. That way it's a little bit easier to use. And as always, super slam that subscribe button.